Welcome back, Mark.
It,
You've got a tan.
I won't lie, it was wonderful. Although uh, Mexico's Zen Mark lasted about 5 minutes in the bureau.
I'm Martha Kelner.
And I'm Mark Stone.
Mark, you're back just as James goes off on his
I
break.
know.
We will at some point have the three of us all together
I
soon.
hope so. I hope so. It is, as I say, good to be back. This is day 72 of Trump 100, and we're gearing up for Trump's Tariff Liberation Day on Wednesday. I've been, as well as being on holiday, I've nipped to West Virginia as well for a few days. By magic, to look at how US companies and the people there are feeling about Trump and his tariffs.
The West Virginia-Mexico doubleheader, classic. We'll also be talking about whether Donald Trump can run for the presidency for a third time. We may very well look back on this week as the one which makes or breaks Donald Trump's presidency. He's risking, in essence, the entire success of his second term on tariffs. The big day, as you mentioned, Liberation Day, the White House are billing it. That is this Wednesday, April 2nd. And Trump has promised reciprocal tariffs on every nation that charges import tariffs on American goods, targeting trillions of dollars worth of trade.
Other countries are understanding it because they've been ripping us for 50 years. I think this is going to be an amazing, I call it a lot of different names, but it's really, in a sense, it's a rebirth of a country.
Yeah, it's worth saying, I suppose, that we still don't quite know what this Liberation Day, as he's coined it, is going to look like. And I say we, I don't just mean us in the media. I don't think anyone really knows. What we do know is that there's going to be some fanfare to go along with the name Liberation Day. There will be a Rose Garden event on Wednesday. I think the whole cabinet will be there. It'll be all bells and whistles, and it will be Trump presenting the return of America. Make America great again. It will be all about that. But with the idea of all these new these new tariffs looming, countries have been scrambling to negotiate exemptions where they think they might be able to get them. Over the weekend, we had a statement from Downing Street after a Sunday call between President Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The readout, as it's known, was pretty thin. It said simply that the pair had productive negotiations about an economic deal. There is some reporting suggesting that the Brits wanted to try and get Trump to London sometime soon to be able to sign some sort of a trade deal which would exempt the UK from the tariffs. I think it's not going to happen, not yet anyway.
This feels like a sort of last-ditch
Mm.
effort by Starmer, doesn't it? A hope that the UK will be given some pass by Donald Trump. Like you say, Mark, we don't know what countries the US will go up against. There had been talk of this so-called Dirty 13, the countries which have the biggest trade deficits, but Donald Trump insisting this will affect all countries globally. But like you say, so many unknowns, not least how this will affect how Donald Trump's presidency is viewed, how it will affect the consumer. And I know you've been to rural West Virginia speaking to people about the potential impact of any more tariffs.
I've been to a place called Ravenswood in a very rural corner of the west side of West Virginia, about 6 hour drive from Washington, D.C. A very poor place. And we visited an aluminum, as they call it, manufacturing plant. You could say that this plant was kind of the blueprint for Donald Trump's vision for America. Big industry, one of the largest factories of its kind in the world. Picture the place. I'm sure you can. Several hundred acres in size, huge machinery, forklift trucks buzzing around the place, cranes suspended, hauling massive loads, and roaring furnaces, heating, molding, transforming aluminium into products for customers, including Boeing, Lockheed Martin, NASA, many others as well. It was kind of watching these massive blocks of aluminium being pushed and flattened. It was kind of like watching pastry being rolled out into sheets to be sent to places like Boeing and Lockheed Martin.
Whenever you go to these sort of big factories, I'm always struck by how small you seem in comparison to what's going on. What I was also interested in is that the actual aluminium that they're molding isn't from America.
Right, exactly, and that's what's interesting. It's from Canada and China mostly. So this is secondary production. They bring in the aluminium from abroad because not much of it is made in America anymore, and then they process it. They process these massive blocks that are kind of the size of cars
Mhm.
into other products that are then sent on. So it's only partly made in America, and of course Trump wants it to be all made in America. But here was the surprise for me. The CEO of the factory, Jean-Marc Germain, who is actually French but
Yeah.
lives in America. The company Constellium is a multinational company. He welcomes these tariffs, despite the fact that he will have to pay more now for his aluminium because it comes from abroad. The reason he is welcoming them is because he says China is too dominant. They are not playing by the same rules. So tariffs, so says the CEO of this company, level the playing field. They address the distortion in the market. Blanket tariffs prevent circumvention because, well, I didn't know this. I thought this was really interesting. Very
Mhm.
often, products that say come from China, they come in through a third country, Canada, before coming to America. So China is circumventing the market that way. So blanket tariffs will deal with that.
There's been massive growth in the capacity installed in China, but a lot of that has been allowed by illegal subsidies. So what it means is that overall trade of aluminum products is broken as an international system.
So it's to reset the market effectively.
I think that's what it can do. Now, obviously, this process creates some collateral damage. It is clear that not all countries, not all products are unfairly traded. But there is a history of Chinese production making its way through third countries into the US. So a blunt, approach was required.
He could almost be a spokesperson, Jean-Marc, for what Donald Trump is saying right now, which is, yes, there'll be short-term pain, but there will be long-term gain in the future. And this is part of his vision for America, the difference between the big
Yeah,
business and the medium-sized business, and then the mom and pop businesses, as they call
ex-
them over here,
exactly.
and how they may be
Yeah.
affected. Donald Trump did a rather unconventional phone interview with NBC News on Sunday, where he discussed these business concerns over tariffs. This was a phone call interview with presenter Kristen Welker, which hasn't been broadcast, but NBC did release the transcript. And Welker asks Trump if he's not concerned about prices going up.
Yeah.
His response to that was striking.
The president said he couldn't care less about prices because, quote, if the prices on foreign cars go up, they're going to buy American cars.
Yeah, but he may say that, but the reason he was elected was primarily to address the cost of living. So a lot of what he's been doing in his first 72 days now, this war on diversity, equity, inclusion hires, on removing anti-American ideology from museums, that's all a sideshow.
Hmm.
He's likely to be judged on how much money people have in their
Yeah.
pocket. Because if he says, I don't care if the prices of foreign cars go up, people in the Midwest or wherever in America will care about the prices of cars going up. And I think the calculation that the Trump White House is taking, the gamble, if you like, is that national pride outweighs concerns over prices. We had the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, expressing that maybe best. He said, access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream.
Yeah.
Well, the voters will be the judge of that in time. But I guess let's focus on cars because the UK automotive sector describes itself as the engine room of Britain's international trade. It claims to generate £1 in every £8 the UK earns from exporting goods. America is the second most important market for the UK. Just under 1 in 5 cars were sent to America in 2024. By contrast, just 18,000 US made vehicles were imported into the UK last year.
That is precisely what annoys Donald Trump. Why don't you buy our cars? I mean, American
Mhm.
food is often doesn't meet UK or EU food standards. American cars are not as safe as European cars. They're also bigger. They're more fuel greedy, and people just don't want them. I mean, can you imagine a Ford F-150, that big pickup truck driving around, the streets of London or wherever else? There are reasons why American cars don't sell very well in the UK. They are also more expensive because of the tariffs, but that's why. And I wonder whether maybe Keir Starmer can come up with some sort of a plan where he'll remove the tariffs on cars, American cars, and say, fine, sell them to the UK. But I wonder how many people will actually buy them.
Yeah, I mean, there's the trend for monster pickup trucks, isn't there, in Chelsea? The Chelsea truck drivers around the schools, but UK roads just aren't built for American cars.
Anyway, back to West Virginia. I followed the winding Ohio River, and you reach the town of Parksburg. And as you will, I'm sure, agree, the most interesting parts of these trips are always speaking to real people.
Yeah.
And we did speak to quite a few people to try and get their sense of what these tariffs might mean. One of the questions I asked, and you alluded to this a moment ago, is whether people would pay more for goods that are made in America, given that they're already struggling and American products may end up being more expensive. You have to wonder whether they really would pay more or whether they just aspire to want to buy American goods. The oft ridiculed experts, if they're right, then Trump's tariffs will raise prices across the supply chain. I was particularly struck by one conversation I had with a young guy called Sam Cumpstone. He was walking along the side of the river with his wife and small baby. He works in the railways industry, transporting coal. He was kind of a lost soul, I felt, lost and kind of disillusioned politically.
Obama, he shut down mines and ruined a lot of people's lives. So I'm for Republican. I'm for a lot of the things that they do and what they bring, but I'm not exactly aligned with Donald Trump and what he does. You don't have to agree with everything they do as long as they help your livelihood.
And you think Donald Trump and his team might just do that?
Maybe. I mean, you never know. Drill, baby, drill. Whatever. I mean, we'll see. No politician with millions or billions of dollars cares about me or you. Nobody.
So there we go. Sam Cumpstone, not really sure what to think or who to believe. Now, Martha, from tariffs to a third term for Donald Trump, because he's floating the idea, right?
Yeah, it increasingly seems like he'd like there to be a third term. He's spoken in the past at rallies and public appearances with a sort of side of humour about the possibility of running again, but it does seem like he's shifted to being deadly serious about that. And in fact, on that NBC News phone call, the same one that we were talking about earlier, he was asked if he did want another term. Remember, he's not even 100 days into this one yet. And his response was, "I like working." Kristen Welker, the host, asked him to clarify those comments, and he said, "I'm not joking." He then said it's far too early to think about it, but she pushed back and asked whether he's been presented with any plans to allow him to seek a third term, to which he responded, "There are methods which you could do it."
Yeah, he didn't elaborate. At the moment, at least, I think they're enjoying keeping this idea floating. It's something that was once seemed completely ridiculous. Now, maybe not. Maybe not. He's defying the Constitution in other ways. Maybe he thinks he can do it here too. And it is all about the Constitution. The 22nd Amendment says that no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. That was an amendment to the Constitution passed way back in 1947. Before then, presidents largely recognized an unwritten precedent established by the first president, George Washington. He declined to seek a third term, citing the potential for presidential tyranny. It was, in fact, FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who ran for a third term, citing America's entry to World War II as the justification for that. He then won a fourth term, but he died shortly after that. And it was then that the 22nd Amendment was passed, limiting presidents to just 2 terms.
It is a subject that everyone wants to talk about. Everyone wants to know, will Donald Trump try and do this constitution busting third term? He was asked again about it in a press conference by a journalist who said, if you run for a third term, would you be happy for Barack Obama to run for a third term? And he said, I quite like that idea.
If you were allowed, for some reason, to run for a third term, is there a thought that the Democrats could try to run Barack Obama against you
I'd love
for
that.
his third term?
Boy, I'd love that. That would be a good one. I'd like that.
There is actually a precedent that Donald Trump might be looking at when he said, what did he say? He said, there are ways, there are methods in which you could do it. I wonder if he's looking to Moscow for those methods, because back in between 2008 and 2012, you may remember that Vladimir Putin, who was constitutionally barred from a third consecutive term as president, he did a bit of a switcheroo, a tandemocracy, they called it, where he got Dmitry Medvedev to become the president. Putin then became the prime minister between 2008 and 2012, allowing him then to run again for president in 2012. But he was always really in power. So maybe Donald Trump is going to find a compliant person to become president in, 3 years' time. And then he will effectively still be the president in all but name. Who knows? Who knows?
Would we describe JD Vance as compliant?
I don't know. Maybe not. He's one to watch for sure. We can't go without me mentioning the big moment I missed when Martha met Marjorie. Wow.
Yeah. I feel like I've talked about it a
I
lot.
bet you have. Well,
since
you
then.
can talk about it again. Like hat tip. It was excellent, absolutely excellent, extraordinary stuff. To see what she had to say to you. Of course, that was in reaction to Signalgate, which I read about on the beach, jaw in sand. For me, just like getting back to it today, the fact that the White House has now said that the group chat scandal is a closed matter, I think that speaks volumes. It tells us about the tight grip that the administration has right now. It has a grip on Congress. It has a grip on the American media. No one is able to call out this with any degree of effect. No one, it seems, is able to hold power to account. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think Signalgate is fully over yet. The network TV channels over here still reporting on it. The journalist involved, Jeffrey Goldberg, still calling for more examination of exactly what happened and calls for accountability continuing.
Lastly, Kid Rock in the Oval Office. What's that all about?
Yeah, Kid Rock, who didn't get the memo that you have to wear a suit in the Oval Office, or certainly didn't wear a sober suit. He wore a red sparkly top and trousers and a white trilby. He was talking about an executive order that Trump was signing to stop fans being ripped off by ticket touts, which is almost universally popular. It's a crossover with the Biden administration there. This war on ticket touts. Kid Rock in that appearance in the Oval Office said he wanted to be the hero of working people, that he didn't mind if he got paid a little bit less if people could get affordable gig tickets, and that he's currently overpaid. So overpaid but not underdressed, it has to be said.
Very good. Well, that is it for day 72 of Trump 100.
And if you have any questions, you can, as ever, email us at trump100@sky.uk.
Yeah, please do keep sending them in. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow for day 73. Bye-bye.
See you then.